Watergate. Woo! This deals with what? Presidente. Ryan.
Bill Clinton.
If I sneeze.
If I sneeze, yes. You guys know?
Bill.
Richard Nixon. Sweet.
Here, use this.
The upshot of Watergate was he tried to spy on the Democrats in 1972. I know.
Right.
He used CIA agents. Anybody heard about the people who broke this case open? Okay. The people who did this, who broke this case, are two reporters. They worked for the Washington Post. They were Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein. Watergate has a couple of real big implications. I'm not going to write them, but you're going to write them. They have a couple of real big implications. First off, I lied. The press is a check on the president. I feel like I'm writing in blood. And government. This is one of these offshoots of the free press that we have to have in America. If the press isn't saying, hey, what about this? Our government doesn't run as good, right? We have to have this. The second, Nixon, they start the impeachment. But he resigns, all right? Resigns before the thing. The man who took over for him, yeah,
What is the word which like that?
impeachment. Right. Hey, impeachment is where they're taking the president and they're putting him on trial. Who else in American history has been not impeached, but had the trial of impeachment?
Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton, and there's one other. He's the guy after Abraham Lincoln. His name was Andrew Johnson. So he resigns. So the one, we got this press is the check on the president. The second thing is, how do you think the people viewed the president after this? What do you guys think? Go ahead and shout out an idea. Bad, but what kind of bad? Because, I mean, there's like JFK, I'm going to sleep with everybody bad, and then there's like, I'm going to lie and spy on people bad. So there's two different kinds of bads there. There's like, I'm going to go start a war in Iraq and not have any like excuse or real reason for it and kill some people, and, and I'm going to defend the country on 9/11. Two different kinds of bads. Hey, do you think Americans had more trust or less trust in the president? Less. This right here, this impeachment and everything, this, if anything, started our divide between the Republicans and the Democrats. All right? All right. Now, the fall of the USSR. The USSR had a war in Afghanistan. Do you guys know what the nickname of Afghanistan is? It is called the Breaker of Empires. First empire that it broke, Alexander the Great. Then repeatedly after that, on and on and on. Great Britain, they lost wars that's there. The last one before we went in there, and I'm not saying that we're broken yet, but was the USSR. From 1979 to 1989, they fought a war in Afghanistan. Get that down. From 79 to 89, they fought in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is the USSR's Vietnam. They poured tons of money into it. They lost tons of soldiers. Everybody lost faith in the government. This was a drag on the Soviet Union's economy, its government, and everything that it could do. All right? This is the start of the fall. Okay? Then, in the mid-'80s, we had a group of people in Poland. All right? And I love these guys. They were a union. They were a union of pipe fitters. They're plumbers. All right? They worked on the docks in Poland, but they did all the plumbing for the docks. Okay? And they had a leader. His name was Lech Wałęsa. I actually got to hear him speak once. Ms. Roth, could I interrupt you for a second? Would you look up Lech Wałęsa's name and just make sure I spelled it right?
Lech Wałęsa?
Yeah.
Did you mean Leach Wilson or Lech Wałęsa?
Lech Wałęsa. How do you spell his last name?
W-A-L.
Polish guy? Yeah. W-A-L-E-S-A, and the L has like a T, but it's planted up, and then the E has a little hook at the bottom.
All right. Why this is neat. So this union, Solidarity, their leader Lech Wałęsa, overthrew the Polish communist government. All right? Overthrew the communist government. Where it gets interesting, how many of you guys are Catholic? All right. So what pope was from Poland? Say it again, Mason.
I just shouted out a random.
Yes, say it again.
John.
All right. So John Paul II, he's from Poland. So when they took over the government, the Pope went there.
What pope was it?
JP2. Hey, if you're the Soviet Union and the leader of the Catholic Church goes to Warsaw, Poland, and says, I recognize this Polish government, can you invade Poland and take it back? Ben, what do you think? No. Why not? Hey, how many countries are predominantly Catholic? What continent is predominantly Catholic? South America. Europe, right? You have Italy, you have Spain, you have Portugal. All solidly Catholic. If you would attack you have, how many Catholics are in America? Quite a lot? I do not know. Don't worry about it. If the communists would attack there, it would have been the end. This is the start of Eastern Europe falling. Anybody know what the biggest event in Eastern Europe falling is? There was a very famous concert there. 1989, and I believe it's in October, but the Berlin Wall falls. And this is a fabulous event. Spontaneously, the East Germans start to go across the border into West Germany. The people of Berlin, they're like, wait a minute. All these spud farmers and pig farmers, they're going across. We're going to do it. So en masse, they march on the Berlin Wall. Now, the Berlin Wall is one of the highly guarded fortifications there ever was. And you got guys with machine guns from East Germany pointing them into East Berlin. And they look at their buddy and they're all smoking a cigarette like they're, European. They're like that. And they say, should we shoot them? And the guy over here, he's like, yeah, I don't know if we should shoot them. And then so he calls up the sergeant, and the sergeant's like, I don't know if we should shoot the people. So they then call up, the lieutenant. The lieutenant calls the captain calls the major calls the colonel calls the general. And the general's like, I'm going to contact the government. And everybody at the government had already fled. So then they relay the message on down, and there's the guy smoking his cigarette, and they're like, I don't know what we should do. And then the guy with the gun, he doesn't shoot him. And then they join the people, and they, with sledgehammers, picks, hand chisels, right? They just start to knock down the wall. And when everybody in West Berlin's like, they're knocking down the wall, they then start to join in and help out too. They get in cranes and they just tear it apart. How many of you guys know the guy from Baywatch and America's Got Talent, David Hasselhoff? I mean, hey, David Hasselhoff is a rock god in Germany. And so he went there the day after the wall came down and did a concert there. It was his freedom concert. You guys know the band Pink Floyd? Mm-hmm. Guess what song they played? The Wall. Get it? Suckers. All right. So this all of Eastern Europe falls. The Soviets, they had a leader by the name of Mikhail Gorbachev. And this guy was iconic, all right? He had the ugliest birthmark in the world right on his bald head. It looked like Australia in bright two tones of pink, okay, Bethany? It was nasty. You're like, toupee. But Gorbachev, he realized that the Soviet Union was not working anymore. So he instituted this idea called perestroika. And perestroika was to speak out, to have people speak out, which is the opposite of communist Soviet Union. Because it was like, shut your mouth or we're going to arrest you and put you in a gulag in Siberia. Gulag's a jail where they don't feed you and you have to eat rats. And it's really nasty. You guys ever seen that Jack Reacher movie? Yeah, the very first one, right? Where the guy's like has no hands because he nibbled them off. He was in a gulag in the Soviet Union. Now, the generals of the army, they kidnapped Gorbachev. And they tried to take over in, anybody know the capital of Russia? Moscow, right? When that happened, we had a lone figure come out, all right? And this man was brilliant. That lone figure is... Ow! That lone, what? Did you say the Lone Ranger? Oh, fine. Hey, that lone figure is this dude by the name of Boris Yeltsin, all right? Boris Yeltsin was brilliant. He was the governor of Moscow, so he was the second most powerful man in the Soviet Union. Think about how big Iowa is, right? Think about how big Russia is. How many time zones is Russia? Anybody know?
9.
Yeah, it's 9. And he was in charge of that state. All right? So when the generals tried to kidnap Gorbachev, they put troops into Moscow. Yeltsin got on top of the tanks and commandeered the troops. And he was like, you're not going to take this over. We're going to become our own country again. Yeah, and Yeltsin is a classic Soviet communist. His nose is like this big. It's bulbous. It's red-veined. He would actually meet with Bill Clinton in the 90s, and Clinton would be like, vodka breath very much, Boris. I mean, it was very, very, very bad. Now, interesting, Guess who is vice president was? I'll give you a hint. He likes to ride horses topless and still does Greco-Roman wrestling. And he has a pet. Who?
I said you.
No. I do like to do Greco-Roman wrestling, but I usually ride a horse with my shirt on. Hey, who's the current leader in Russia? It's Putin. Putin was his vice president. Yeah, there's pictures of him out there. Devin, look it up. All right, internet. Hey, when the Soviet Union falls, what's the pivot? We no longer have the Cold War. We have to find a new enemy or live in peace. All right. So the internet. What do you guys think is the big change here in the internet? It's your opinion. You grew up in this. All right. Isaiah says communication. What do you mean? So one aspect is you have social media. Now, is that necessarily a huge impact?
Let me ask this, you guys are doing what right now?
A research paper.
So, 10, 15 years ago, how would you have found out this information?
Yeah, here. Now, hold on. 10 years ago, you would have still used the internet.
Well, yeah, I mean, I did, but there was less of it.
Yeah,
I
hey.
remember having to be, like, retired to use the phone.
Yeah. Boris Yeltsin topless on a horse. Not Boris Yeltsin, Vladimir Putin. Hey, but I want to see if you guys can see this. What is communication and social media? There's a lot more, though, in communication. What else? You have to raise your hand in my class. Go ahead. Information, what do you mean?
Research.
All right, so that's what she just said. I want you guys to think of the other thing. There's different research that you guys can absolutely do. Hey, anybody has all equal access to knowledge. Everybody has equal access to knowledge. Which is a huge difference. You know, one of my favorite things to do in the summer is take free online classes from like Ivy League schools. I don't know, my dad was illiterate. I like to learn. What else though? Hey, why do we have a whole bunch of Chinese made Chromebooks here?
Good question.
Here. Hey, it's the internet. This is why. This communication lets global trade happen at a phenomenal level. What else does the internet do? Who wants to work in a field dealing with business? A couple of you guys? Do you guys realize that you will work probably no matter what in a company that has global ties, right? I mean, this is what you will have to deal with. My mom has her own business where she sells patterns. She doesn't sell in Iowa. She doesn't sell in America. She sells around the world. All right? Hey, what I want you guys to understand is this term created by a guy named Thomas Friedman. And it's the world is flat. Your biggest competitors, when you guys get into a job field, is going to be somebody in a foreign country who has the equal education that you have due to the internet and has the ability to do things here through the internet. Hey, let me ask you this. When a farmer plows his fields, plants his fields, right, it's largely automated, right? So what does the farmer do in the tractor now? Can somebody tell me in detail? I don't ride in tractors. Cora.
They just like push a button and then all you have to do is like turn when you get to the end of the road.
And so they just got to do a turn when it hits the end of the row? Could you see how at some point that turn could become automated and it can be done on the internet? When that happens,
It already is.
and it already is, hey, who's to say why it has to be done by somebody here? Because whoever does it here I could maybe get somebody in India who's just as smart to do it for free, for not free, but relatively a third cheaper. Like, that's where it could go to, all right? All right, there wasn't a question. 9/11. Now, I will get more detail into what happens later on, but does everybody know that what group attacks us? Al Qaeda, right? Now, Al Qaeda was in what country? Totally not. It's in Afghanistan. Who was the man who led Al Qaeda? All right. Who trained Osama bin Laden in terrorism? Very good. Oh, now hey, Mason brought up a good point. Why did Osama bin Laden have a hatred towards America? I'm going to give you a quick 1-minute version. 1990, Iraq invaded Kuwait. Osama bin Laden is a prince of what, or was a prince of what country? Osama bin Laden, OBL, was a prince of what country? Anybody know? No. Saddam Hussein was in charge, so don't shout out the answer. Hey, he was a prince of Saudi Arabia. When Iraq invaded Kuwait, who went and defeated Iraq? Stop shouting out answers if you don't have an idea. The United States. So the U.S. beat Saddam Hussein, all right? But before we beat him, Osama bin Laden goes to his uncle, the king of Saudi Arabia, and says, hey, I have a trained group of fighters, and we would like to fight Iraq. His uncle laughs at him and says, I'm not going to have you do it. The United States already says we're going to do it. So Osama bin Laden loses face. He loses his honor. To what group of people? The United States of America. After that, he does, have you guys ever heard about the 1993 van bombings in the World Trade Center? All right, so he tried to blow up the World Trade Center by blowing up 2 vans in the basement parking lots of it, and that didn't work. And then so this leads then eventually to what he does on 9/11. All right, he uses the U.S. as a scapegoat to get people to do his terrorism. So 9/11 happens, Al Qaeda, Afghanistan. The people who do the Al Qaeda attacks, guess know how many hijackers there were? There's 18 of them. It's 18 or 19, but I'm going to stick with 18. 16 of these are from Saudi Arabia. On September 12th, only one flight leaves our country. The prince, who is the foreign ambassador of the United States, makes a plea to the president at that time, who was who? Who was our president in 9/11? All right, so this is GWB. All right, and asked for a plane to allow Saudi Arabian citizens to leave the United States. Our government never ever found out who was on that plane, nor did we get a chance to question them. Now, what's the big shift here? If you guys think about this, and the Cold War that it started or it kept going, what now becomes our focus as a nation? All right, fighting in the Middle East becomes our main focus. And at the start, you guys are probably way too young to, I don't know if your parents would have said this even. What we wanted to do is, hold on one second, was we wanted to bring democracy. And then after that was going on, it then became stabilizing the government, and then after that, other things and other things, okay? To now, where you could probably argue, no, it's to fight radical Islam. All right? So out of these four things, you know, which one has maybe the most import? It's tough. History will tell if it's this right here, or if it maybe is more along this lines. Okay? I know this though. If you guys think about our current government, when people started to lose trust in the government, you could argue this is when our country maybe lost some of the greatness that we think makes us exceptional. Stuff to ponder, okay? You guys will take your break. When you'll come back, you will sit down and you will start to write, because what's due on Wednesday? Do it.